On March the 3rd of this year, over 9 months ago, President Biden nominated Dilawar Syed to be the Deputy Administrator of the Small Business Administration. Mr. Syed has spent decades building and scaling successful businesses, as well as advocating for struggling entrepreneurs and small business owners in underserved areas. It is clear that he is eminently qualified to help lead the SBA at a time when the agency is providing unprecedented assistance to help small businesses survive and recover from the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic. Last April, during Mr. Syed's hearing before the Senate Small Business and Entrepreneurship Committee, my Republican colleagues raised concerns about PPP and EIDL loans received by Lumiata, the company from which Mr. Syed served as CEO. As chairman of the committee, I gave a commitment to work in a bipartisan manner to secure additional information from the SBA about these loans. I kept my word. On June 8th, the SBA made materials on the loans available for my review, for the ranking member's review, and for the review of every member of the committee. The materials proved that there was absolutely nothing irregular about these loans. In fact, the company did the right thing and repaid the forgivable PPP loan after its lenders determined that the company did not require the level of government assistance. We wish more companies would have followed the lead that this company did. But then a week later, a new issue arose. Republican members accused Mr. Syed of having anti-Israel bias because of his involvement with the Engage, a nonprofit organization that supports the Muslim American community. This accusation was completely unfounded. As the American Jewish Committee wrote, the unsupported accusations that somehow Jewish businesses or those with ties to Israel may not fare well under Mr. Syed's leadership in the Small Business Administration has no factual ground. Indeed, he has specifically disavowed support for the boycott, divestment, and sanctions movement, which seeks the dissolution of Israel. The AJC went on to say that Republicans' accusations against Mr. Syed were un-American. 2 weeks later, after the AJC released its statement, Republicans of the committee concocted yet another reason to block Mr. Syed's nomination. This time, it was Planned Parenthood. Committee Republicans announced that they would boycott all votes on the nomination because Planned Parenthood affiliates received loans under the Paycheck Protection Program, despite the fact that these loans were made during the Trump administration and had nothing to do with Mr. Syed. In response to Republicans' demands, on November 24th, Administrator Guzman sent the committee a detailed 4-page response that gave a full explanation of SBA policy on providing PPP loans to nonprofits, including Planned Parenthood. The SBA provided the specific data on the number of loans to Planned Parenthood affiliates, as well as the total dollar loans and forgiven. The administrator's letter makes clear that the SBA is implementing affiliation standards for Planned Parenthood in the same manner it is implementing the affiliation standards for other nonprofits, such as the United Way, Boys and Girls Clubs, Girl Scouts, Boy Scouts, and Goodwill. Then there was another request for information. And once again, the SBA sent another detailed letter to our committee, to the ranking member, Senator Rand Paul, dated December 15th, 21. That letter spells out the specifics on every loan given out by the SBA, again under the Trump administration initially, to the Planned Parenthood affiliates, the numbers that apply for PPP, the number that withdrew those applications, the total dollar amounts, the loans that were forgiven under the original PPP amount, and the total dollar amounts. The amounts of PPP number 2 loans given out requested by Planned Parenthood, the number that were withdrawn, the dollar amount that were given out, the dollar amount that's been forgiven. All of that has been made available to our committee by the Small Business Administration. quite frankly, I don't know what else we can do. The SBA is required to carry out the laws that Congress passed. We made it clear we wanted nonprofits eligible for the help under the small business loan programs that we created. We made it clear that the affiliation rules would be applied, and the affiliation rules were applied, the same way they were applied to all nonprofits that have a national affiliation. And the initial determination made under the Trump administration was reviewed under the Biden administration to make sure that those affiliate rules were applied. And they were applied fairly to all nonprofits. Thanks to the hard work of the SBA personnel, tens of millions of small businesses and nonprofits have received federal assistance to keep their doors open and their employees on staff. The SBA has provided relief through multiple roads of Paycheck Protection Program, the EIDL Loan Program, the Targeted Grants Program, the Shuttered Venue Operator Grant Program, and the Restaurant Revitalization Fund. Unfortunately, the SBA has had to implement these programs without the benefit of a deputy administrator, the person whose job it is to oversee the day-to-day operations of the agency, and gives us an opportunity to have a confirmed person at SBA that is answerable to Congress and the American people. Many nonpartisan small business organizations support the nomination of Mr. Syed, including the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, the Small Business Investor Alliance, and the Small Business Entrepreneurship Council. I could read into the record numerous recommendation letters from the whole gambit of the stakeholder community. In April, the Chamber of Commerce wrote to the committee stating, the U.S. Chamber of Commerce supports the nomination of Dilawar Syed to be Deputy Administrator of the U.S. Small Business Administration. We believe that it is essential for the SBA's senior leadership team to be in place to deliver on the agency's COVID-19 small business emergency relief responsibilities. And we believe Mr. Syed is well qualified for this position. Madam President, I agree. That is why, again, I'm going to be asking that the nomination be discharged from the Small Business Committee and that Mr. Syed receive an up or down vote on his nomination. I might tell you that we have had action in our committee, so this is not inconsistent with the action of our committee. I ask unanimous consent that the Small Business Committee be discharged and the Senate proceed to the following nomination. PN 231, Dilawar Syed of California to be the Deputy Administrator of the Small Business Administration, that the nomination be confirmed, the motion to reconsider be considered made and laid upon the table with no intervening action or debate, that no further motions be in order to the nomination, that any related statement be printed in the record, that the President be immediately notified of the Senate's action.
Is there objection?
Madam President.
The junior senator from Kentucky.
Reserving the right to object, the Hyde Amendment was passed in 1976. This amendment prohibits federal funds from going directly to pay for abortion. For 40-some-odd years, this has had some effect on trying to prevent money directly going from the taxpayer to fund abortion. The reason for this amendment was that many people have profound religious beliefs that their money, their taxpayer dollars, shouldn't go to kill the unborn. This is a big deal, the Hyde Amendment. Right now, currently, appropriations for the last 40 years have always had Hyde Amendment protections. But now we discover, under duress, the Small Business Administration admits that $100 million has been given to Planned Parenthood without Hyde protections. So this $100 million, which is essentially about a third of what they get every year from the federal government, has no Hyde prescriptions, no Hyde restrictions, and this money can go directly to those performing abortions. So the abortionist that does thousands of abortions each year is getting money directly from the federal government to pay his or her salary. This is a first in 40 years and is not a small matter. This is an extraordinary thing that the federal government, for the first time in 40-some-odd years, is directly paying for abortions. This shouldn't happen. This is worth the debate. And we only discovered this because of holding up a nominee to try to get information. The Small Business Administration has steadfastly hidden this information tried not to reveal it, is slowly, little by little, giving some, which they gave yesterday a little bit more, but they've been resisting and resisting and resisting. The Small Business Administration originally ruled that Planned Parenthood was a big business, an extraordinarily big business, a business with 16,000 people. Planned Parenthood themselves calls them affiliates. They count their income all together. They pool their income and put out documents saying, this is how much we have all together. 38 of these Planned Parenthoods were sent a notice saying, you have illegally obtained this money. You are not a small business and you should return it. Supposedly, these entities then protested and appealed the process. The Small Business Administration, after months and months and months, still refuses to reveal the appeals process or what the complaints were. We have not gotten those documents, although we've asked repeatedly for these documents. This nomination does directly have to do with this, because whoever's in charge of PPP, you would want someone to be an honest broker who says, by golly, this looks suspicious. How come this information is not being revealed to Congress? How come Congress is not allowed to see this? Now, the Small Business Administration will say it's confidential. That does not apply to Congress's oversight. That might apply to, releasing it to the public, but that doesn't apply to Congress's oversight of the Small Business Administration. This is an extraordinary thing that has happened. $100 million given directly to pay for people to do abortions. It's outside the scope and contrary to the scope of the Hyde Amendment, and it's something worth having a significant and prolonged and protracted battle until all the documents are revealed. Madam President, I object.
Madam President.
Objection is heard.
Madam President.
The senior senator from Maryland.
Thank you. Well, I certainly regret that an objection has been made, but let me at least correct the record. PPP money, Paycheck Protection money, does not go to health care services. It goes to personnel costs. It goes to related expenses. It does not go to health care services. The law that we passed is the law that the administration implemented. There were no restrictions, reference to what Senator Paul is referring to, included in the Paycheck Protection Program. The restrictions on a nonprofit dealt with affiliation rules. Those affiliation rules were applied to Planned Parenthood as they were applied to similar organizations that I already put into the record. What Senator Paul is complaining about could have been taken up during the debate of the Paycheck Protection Program, but it was not. The bill was passed with Republican majorities in this body and with President Trump signing it into law. It would have been against the will of Congress for the Trump administration under the SBA or under the Biden administration under the SBA to use its own judgment and not the judgment of the policymaking branch of government, the legislative branch of government. So I just want to put on the record that the response by Senator Paul is not the factual circumstances that we're dealing with. We're dealing with a qualified person who should be confirmed by this body, and the administration is carrying out the will of Congress in the way that it has implemented the Paycheck Protection Program. With that, I yield the floor.